is so important that the horse feel confident with you. I can see and feel and I know that too many no answers that leads to a horse being disconnected and not feel understood, seen and heard. And those little steps are so important because if you don't take little steps, you also have to make a lot more pressure.
What if the slowest path was actually the fastest way to real connection? Today, we're sitting down with Mirjam Dunkel, a quietly radical horsewoman who's built her life around patience, presence, and the power of starting over. From liberty to classical dressage, from Arizona ranches to the Swiss Alps, Miriam's journey is all about one thing: doing right by the horse. With over 100 young horses started and countless lessons learned the hard way, she's here to remind us that clarity, softness, and little steps add up to something lasting. In this episode, we're diving into why pushing through rarely works and what to do instead, how to rebuild trust with a horse that's shut down or confused, the mindset shift that changed Miriam's life and her training, and how slowing down can make you a better rider, partner, and person. Whether you've just hit a roadblock with your horse or you're chasing a lifelong dream, this episode will meet you exactly where you are and remind you why you started.
Dear Horse World, it's Mirjam Dunkel.
Well, Miriam, welcome to the Dear Horse World podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've already made me laugh so much. So I'm so excited to have you on this podcast because we've been messaging back and forth for a while, all through your move from Switzerland to the United States. And I thought we'd actually kind of start the podcast, you sharing a little bit about finding your way back here to Colorado from Switzerland.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been 3 months since we're here, so
Yeah.
I hope everyone understands my accent. I can also talk Swiss German.
Yeah.
So how much would you like to know? Like short version, long version?
Well, let's dive a little bit into why you came back. And then I thought we could talk a little bit about your first impression of the United States, because I know you had a really pivotal experience when you were 16. But let's talk a little bit about why you came back to the United States from Switzerland.
So why I came back is because the first time I entered the States, I was thinking about the States in my heart. After that, I was in Arizona helping out on a ranch when I was 18 years old. That was my first travel to the States. And ever since, it's been in my heart. I couldn't get it out. It's like I felt captured in Switzerland. Why? Switzerland is a beautiful country. I had all my friends, my parents. I had a great jobs. I was working with horses. I loved my clients and I had everything really. And whoever was in Switzerland know what I'm talking about. It's so beautiful. But I felt deeply in my heart that something is missing all the time. I felt out of place. I didn't feel 100% happy. And what makes me happy here is the space. I love the people. People are so open, like you are. You just called me up and said, hey, I love what you do. And I love that about the people in the States. And I love the country. I love the nature that you can actually go out into the national forest and stay out there for days and not see anybody. And nature gives me so much. And in Switzerland, there's beautiful nature too. But you see, you have to kind of angle the right position so you don't see a house or a road.
You're just sharing. You're sharing. I've always found in those parts of Europe, you're just sharing the space with a lot more people.
Yeah, it's more crowded, definitely. And I mean, Switzerland can nothing for it. It's just such a tiny country.
Yeah.
And that's why I felt strongly connected with the States, and I knew I have to come here. And it took me over 25 years until it finally happened. And I worked towards it.
Really?
All the time.
So yeah, maybe share a little bit the journey of how you ended up. So now you're here, and I asked you if you're going back to Switzerland, and you said only to clinic, like on trips, but you plan to stay here in the United States.
Right now we are on a visa that we have to leave the country, except if we can expand the visa. That's our hope with the business that we invested in to grow this business, so we can expand the visa and stay longer. And that's our goal to actually keep moving here and grow.
And what is the business?
So the business has nothing to do with horses. We invested in a wedding venue, event venue, space center. It's situated on a ranch, on a Lazy Sea Ranch. It's beautiful, Western, elegant style. We're now rebuilding it. And then we hopefully can make people happy when they come get married or have their family gathering or team events in this venue. It's really, really cool. That's something besides horses. Okay. Horses is big, yeah.
I want to now talk I want to talk about horses and your journey with horses, because it's a really cool story of how you grew up with an interest, but always a lot of questions, no?
So, what do you mean about questions?
Well, when I was reading about you, it seemed like you were given opportunities to explore different types of training and different types of ways to relate with horses. And because you're sort of an interesting combination, because you're a Swiss rider who has explored Spanish riding and Western riding, who loves the United States.
I know, I've always been a little weird.
I love it.
Aren't we all a little bit weird?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely a little bit weird. Probably a lot weird. So I love that combination, and I would love for you to share a little bit with our listeners that journey of how did you find the parts of the horse world that you identified with? How did you get introduced to horses?
So I grew up in a small village, in a house. We didn't had any horses. I had my rabbit, and I had my chickens. I was walking with them, and petting them, and they were just my pets. And I always loved animals. I really loved animals and felt really strong bond to animals, and cats that were scratching other people, but they never scratched me. So my parents always still tell that story that the animals just felt peaceful around me, and I didn't know why. It's just, as a kid, I just loved animals. And I was always a little bit different than anyone else. In school, I was different. I was a little bit in my head. I was a dreamer. So I was always a little bit, outside, maybe bullied. So I always kept going inside, internal, more doing what I love, and that's being with animals and nature. So I kept it for myself a little bit. Yeah. And I had a strong desire to really learn and be with horses. And I didn't have an own horse. I didn't have much chance to be with horses because lessons were and are expensive. Yes. But still, my parents made everything possible that I could get some lessons. And my first lessons were horses standing in a stand, being tied up, getting yelled at when you took a lesson. So that was my first experience.
I don't think you're alone in that being your first experience.
No, that's the way it went, maybe, and still maybe sometimes is. I don't know, and everyone was clapping if I could stay on, because I was always giving these horses that were bucking and biting in the stables. Anyway, I was a young kid and just loved to be around horses. It didn't keep me from still going there. Yeah. I don't know why, because I should have quit then. I'm like, Yeah. But
some people do,
I think. It was such a strong desire from wherever it comes to be with horses. And then I had horses I could kind of work with or go ride out and then I helped at the barn.
Yeah. In exchange. An exchange. Yes. I actually had a really similar start in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I couldn't speak any English. I have never left the country more further away than Italy or Germany. That's maybe if you would leave the state, not even leave the state of Colorado.
It's
here.
very close, guys. For everyone who's listening who maybe doesn't know the proximity of Italy or France to Switzerland, it's like going to the other side of the state of Wyoming. It's very close by.
But I told my parents, I was reading an article about a cowgirl in Arizona, and I told my parents I want to go there. And they're like, you're 18 years old. I was 17 at that time when I told my parents. And somehow they really said, okay, she really wants that. We're going to help her, even though she can't speak any English. She has never flown before. So we found actually a ranch that I paid to get there and learn from. And that was a ranch in Arizona. He is a horse trainer. He's retired now, and they became friends, and I visited them since I am 18.
Yeah.
Ever since.
Oh, neat.
And this was my first experience actually training horses.
So you flew over to Arizona, and you'd never been on a plane before.
No.
And you didn't speak any English?
No, I was sitting at the table with all these cowboys speaking to each other. And I'm like, who am going to learn English?
Yeah.
How is this going to happen? Because nobody can translate me what they're saying.
Wow.
And somehow the brain does manage to learn it, even though nobody could speak one word of German and translate me what they're talking about.
Wow. And how long were you in Arizona for?
So I was 3 months, came back for 12 days and went back for another 3 months and told my parents I'll never come back. I want to stay here.
Yeah.
And we tried to get the visa. I didn't get it. I was too young. And then I was living in Switzerland with a heart broken, wanting to be in the States in Arizona. And then I decided myself that it's time to be okay with the situation right now, that I'm in Switzerland, and let's focus on life here and not, cry about that it didn't happen, and still maybe try to work your way on your dream and still be happy where you are right now, because it is a beautiful country and I had everything. And in Arizona, our friends, maybe it was the third time I went there, I'm not sure. He knew or something. He said to me, and I didn't know at the time what he actually meant, but I know it now. He said, if you're not going to work with horses, you're going to waste your time. So he felt that strong connection and the desire to work with horses, or the gift maybe. I didn't know at the time exactly what he meant. And he also said, you need your own horse. And then I could choose a own horse from all the horses on the ranch. He said, and I'm like, I don't have any money to buy a horse. It's like, I wish that would be my dream. And I was crying every Christmas that my parents didn't give me a horse.
Right.
There was no horse under the Christmas tree. And I still feel bad about it. I mean, they would have gave me a horse if they could have. But
of course, yeah.
Anyway, they said, I only need $3 from you. So, and that was, they planted a seed, a big seed. So, and this is really interesting. I think you can change the life from somebody by planting a seed. And they definitely changed my life.
That's
by
powerful.
doing that. Yeah. I don't know where I would have ended up being, if they wouldn't have given me a horse, because a horse means taking care of this animal. And it's a different life. Yeah.
It changes your life forever. And everything in the way you see it, for sure. So what was the name of this horse?
The name of this horse was Blucher. It's I don't know. Maybe I wasn't the most creative person at giving names at this time.
What is that? Is that a Swiss German name?
No, it's nothing. It's just Blucher.
Blucher.
Because he was kind of blue. He was a blue roan.
Oh,
so cool. Blue And then I came up with Blucher.
Blucher. That's a first. I've never heard of a horse named Blucher. I like it.
That was my first horse, yes.
And he was a horse in a quarter horse in Arizona.
He was a quarter horse in Arizona. He was 1 year old. He was a stallion. He was the wildest one, the fastest one. And I just loved his spirit and how he was. And I trained him. And I took him over to Switzerland because I knew I can't be in the States. So eventually, when he was about 4 years old, I moved him to Switzerland. And it was a beautiful journey.
And how did you do that? How did you, because it's expensive to bring a horse back over to you.
But it wasn't as expensive as it is now, actually.
Oh, really?
And at the end of our training, you never stop training, but we were riding out free liberty through traffic and just everywhere. We had a really strong bond.
Wow. And where is he now?
So I had people telling me, I would buy this horse. I give you anything. I'm like, this, you can give me $1 million. I would never, ever sell this horse. It's like selling a part of you.
Yes.
But by the time I knew that it's going to happen, that we moved to the States, maybe 2 years before I moved to the States, it happened that he found a very beautiful place with a family. They have a lot of space. He can roam free and he can stay because it was so hard, really. It's like, I can't leave this horse behind. I have to take him with me. But I knew has some quite of age. He's older. And I just didn't want to do that to him anymore. I didn't want him to fly back to the States and go through this stress when he would have such a beautiful home. And I know he is happy there. So I made a decision for him.
That's love.
That's love.
So and now when you came back to the States and you brought Blucher back, what happened when you went back to Switzerland? Because you embarked on quite an interesting horsemanship journey, because you went and learned from people within the continent of Europe,
right,
who could provide you some context and some horsemanship support.
Yeah, I really always had this strong desire to learn more because I wanted to learn more and be better. I didn't had the desire yet to teach anything. It's like, I want to learn more and get better and better, because I still always feel, and I think we are a beginner on our level, right? And I have this drive in me to keep learning, whether it is from horses that tell you so much every day when you interact with them, with different horses, or from people I want to learn from. And I started just really, as I said, quiet, by myself, for myself, to learn from the trainer I wanted to learn. And I was very, very picky, even from the beginning, to learn from the people I wanted to learn. And I saved all my money to spend to learn from that trainer. And I didn't care how far away this trainer was. If I wanted to learn from him, I want to learn from him until I know the whole system. So I went to Germany to a Liberty trainer I wanted to learn from. Yeah. And I was driving many times, 10 hours. Stayed there, of course, 1 or 2 weeks. Yeah. Spent my money. Yeah. Came back, worked hard, and did it over and over and again until I really understood his system. And then from Arizona, I trained over 100 young horses. I learned so much from them. Wow. I learned Liberty in Germany from a guy that I wanted to learn, and I started to implement what I learned to other horses and learned and knew Liberty. I'm like, okay, I know Liberty. I know how to teach the people, the horses Liberty, and then I'm like, okay, what's next? It's like, okay, I can, to a certain point, train horses to do circles, walk, trot, gallop, go over obstacles, go out in nature and be calm and confident with the rider. But I wouldn't have considered myself as a good rider.
Interesting.
I'm like, I want to learn to be a better rider.
Interesting. And do you think that when someone describes themselves as a good rider, do you think that's true?
I think we never stop learning.
Yeah.
Really. I wouldn't consider myself as a good rider, but I am now a lot better than I used to be, because I could just teach the horse to sight, pass, walk, trot, gallop, go out and all that. But I didn't know anything about the dressage.
Oh, yeah.
I knew that this is healthy for horses to really use their hind to really
use their body
in a correct way, that they stay healthy. And that's my goal. I don't want to compete. I don't want to compete any dressage. But I want to have a healthy horse. I want to, if I teach, help the people to have a healthy horse for life. And it's just not walk, trot, and gallop in a circle. There's so much more to it. And then I started to make a research who I want to learn from to become a better rider.
And what were you looking for when you were researching trainers?
So I was looking for somebody that, a lot of people can tell you how good they are, but if you actually watch them and look in the horse's eye, then you really see if it's just things that he says, or if he's really good. And
I always say it's called congruency, or if they're incongruent or congruent, meaning
still lack of some words.
No, I think it's a we say it in English, means it. Someone who's congruent means what they say and what they do is the same.
Okay.
And incongruent is if when someone says something, they say one thing, but they do quite the opposite. Yes. And I think I really relate to what you say about seeing incongruency in training.
Right. And you see a lot of horses that might know the PF that is maybe done by holding up front and using the stick on their butt, and then they PF like really nervous. And this is just a fast way to teach something not beautiful. And I was really searching for somebody that knows a lot about training horses healthy in a good way. Kind of the way maybe I've been to Vienna, that's the Spanish Hofreitschule.
Yeah, the Spanish riding school.
And they teach these horses in a slow process. It's like maybe they're finished when they're 14. They go through school, these horses, for years and years and years and years of training.
I didn't know that.
And I found a guy, Monoliva. He is not high in social media. I don't find a lot because he's busy. He doesn't need to do any commercial, and he's really, really good. And I really learned a lot from him. I went there I was a horse trainer. I didn't tell him, because then you make pressure on yourself, right? I always come very quiet. I want to learn from you, and I'm a beginner. Even though I was training horses for...
You told him you were a beginner?
No, I didn't tell him anything.
Yeah, that's
But
smart.
I've been training people for over 15 years, and I went to him and I'm like, I am a beginner when I come to you. I am a beginner because you do things different. I want to learn the way you do it.
Cool.
I'm not going to question it. Well, I would if I would see things that I'm not, I'm like, this is not good for the horse. But if I always think, I always, if I'm not sure what he does, I always ask why he does it. And then it makes sense, right? So I really wanted to learn from him, and was his student for the last 6-7 years. Went to a lot of clinics where he gave in Switzerland, went to his stable in Germany. Spent all my money, a lot of money on him, because I wanted to learn from him.
And why? Like, why do you think if someone were to be interested in the classical principles of dressage, the way that it sounds like you were very interested? Because he would Manolo just identify himself as a classical, like a classical trainer.
Doma vaquera.
Yeah. Okay. And what does that mean?
I really didn't make much research what it actually means, the name. But what he's teaching is you're going to be like a dance partner. You have a dance partner, you can go into any direction.
Cool.
So I did never know how you can teach a horse the lead change, for example. And by the time we did lead change my horse. My horse could lead change, but we never practiced the lead change, because we did all the steps and I would say the basic of dressage right. And by the time we asked lead change, he could do lead change. By the time I asked for the first piaffe, he could do piaffe, because we did all the basic right. So that was so interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
And it's not like, now we're going to work on the piaffe. We did every time all the basic, ask again, made my horse, respond, ask A, B, C, D, E, F again. And by the time all that goes good, we ask the piaffe, and my horse did piaffe. And that's really natural, nice way. I really love, that journey.
And do you think that that's good horsemanship? Is breaking it down, not taking any shortcuts? And because when I'm thinking of what you must have learned by starting 100 horses, right? When I watched Tick Maynard compete in Road to the Horse this year, I learned through his training process that actually starting horses is just breaking down the process into small pieces, right? And that's how you were describing your experience with Manolo, is you're breaking everything down into small pieces and building on the strength of each skill.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very, very big thing that I teach, is the little steps, because if you take it slow in the beginning, it goes a lot faster at the end. And believe me, I've seen so many horses that came into my training that had a training that was too fast and too hard. And some can take it for a while, and some will surrender or fight. And I've seen so many horses came to me that were broke down. And I know now, and I mean, I didn't know that in the beginning, but I know now that these little steps and actually creating yes answers, that by the time you ask, you know that your horse can give you the right answer, is so important, that the horse feel confident with you. Because I can see and feel, and I know that too many no answers lead to a horse thinking he's not confident in you, what you ask from him. And that leads to a horse being disconnected and not feel understood, seen, and heard. And those little steps are so important, because if you don't take little steps, you also have to make a lot more pressure sometimes. And if you would break it down into small steps, it's like when I have many times description about horses, what happened, and if I can help. And it's sometimes I come to my horse and I can't catch him. So if I can catch him, he's nervous. And then if I saddle him, I can't really saddle him. And then I ride him, and then he starts bucking. So what does it tell you? It's like somebody fails in school, or if you would be a school teacher, maybe that would be an explanation. And you have a student that is failed in the first grade, failed in the second grade, failed in the third grade, and failed in the fourth grade. I don't know if you have 4 or 5 grades, whatever.
That's perfect.
And I ask you for advice. So what can I do? He's struggling at 6th grade. Start first grade.
Get it right. It's like you didn't get the foundation right.
Do 2nd grade, do 3rd grade, do 4th grade. And if 4th grade doesn't really work, go back to 3rd grade. Yeah. And a lot of people think, and I always have to tell, or I love to say, hey, it's not a downsize. You don't have to start from the beginning. It's like a new journey. And really enjoy the journey. A lot of people say, well, I have to start the basics again. I don't want to have the basics. But the basics can be so beautiful. Yeah. You really have to start enjoying the journey and maybe start again, but don't see it as a new journey, a new start. And by the time I would actually ride this horse, he wouldn't buck. So I'm not... people have the mentality to fix things quick, right? Yes. Quick fix. Okay, let's get on that horse and ride it out or fix the bucking. But there's an underlying need why the horse is bucking. So trying to find that, and you find that in the 1st grade. Yes. If you can't catch a horse, how should I saddle my horse? If I can't saddle my horse right, or if he's not standing still and not feeling confident, why should I saddle my horse? And by the time I saddle my horse and he can be caught and be connected with me, and by the time he is relaxed around me, can stand still, I can saddle him. By the time I saddle him, ride him, he might not buck anymore at all. It's not... When I have a problem horse, it doesn't look like a problem horse. It's not like, he is fighting and flighting and I try to fix it while he does it.
The way the movies demonstrate.
Yeah, by the time I get there, he doesn't show it anymore. It's just so quiet, so peaceful, so little steps.
And it reminds me of a quote by Ray Hunt, which is, the slower you go, the faster you learn. And I wonder whether that actually, it reminds me of a couple things that I've learned on this trip. And I was just in a Mark Rashid clinic, and he told me a story of a ranch horse that he bought that actually ended up being in a movie that he wrote, and he did all the horse training and all the horse components of this movie. And when he first got this horse, he walked that horse. He bought the horse in December, and he walked the horse from January to March. He only worked with the horse at the walk from January to May. And then his partner Chrissy took over the ride because he had another horse, and they walked also all summer. Didn't start trotting until the fall. Didn't start working at the canter until a year later. But he said that by the time they started working on the canter, everything was as it should be. They didn't have to go back and work on anything because they had taken their time. And when I heard that, I was like, that's so long. But I'm starting to see a pattern. And I want to share it with you because I'm literally just recognizing this pattern as we're speaking. Is I think one of the big differences between a professional, and we can say professional and an amateur rider or whatever, but I think the difference between an experienced trainer and a less experienced trainer, let's say, and I think, people like Warwick Schiller, and there's a lot of wonderful people in the horse world that have done a beautiful job at empowering the individual to feel and move through the world as a trainer for their own horse. That they're not a student, that they're also training and they're also a trainer. It just depends on where they are in their levels. And I think the difference between a beginner or an inexperienced trainer and a very experienced trainer is the timeline that they attach to get to a particular outcome. Because what I hear in what you're sharing is there's so much beauty in taking your time. And if you take your time, then all the things will happen as they're meant to. And your horse will be confident and you will be confident. It's when we try to cut corners that we have a difficult time, and then the horse has a difficult time, and then you have to take like 10 steps back just to take one step forward, right? And to me, that's the difference between experience and not experience. That's the difference between ego and no ego.
I believe that the trainer who may not take these little steps are not aware of maybe they haven't had this horse that maybe everything they've done before doesn't work. Because you can apply a lot of pressure to horses and it usually works. They surrender and do what do you want, right? And it works because you might want to do this show or do that stop, and they might not be aware, but I'm sure there will come, and that's why it's so beautiful, a horse along or it just doesn't work. And I really hope that they start to rethink. Maybe some don't and some do, and change and say, hey, why is it not working? And then they start to try to find other solution. That's what I also love about people when they come to me and say, hey, I have a horse that it's just not working out. And I say, and then they are really down, they're like, why? What am I doing wrong? Am I so stupid? No, it's like, I believe that every horse that comes into your life is coming into your life for a reason. And I made so many friends. All my students actually became friends because my students stay for a very long period of time, and I hardly never had a spot left in Switzerland. Is because they had this kind of horse that just something didn't work out the way it worked out before. And that's I mean, it opens up. I always say we wouldn't have met. We wouldn't have
if it wasn't for that horse.
If this horse wouldn't have came. And the little steps are just truly so important for horses to feel seen, heard, and valued. Otherwise they have to somehow a little bit surrender. So, but I wasn't that way. I mean, everyone starts somewhere and does a lot of mistakes, and I still do a lot of mistakes. We never stop learning, even though we would live 1,000 years. But earlier on, I was asked for example a lot. Can you help me load my horse? And I said, yes, of course, because I wanted to help. And I loaded the horse, didn't know it was too much for that horse. Make a lot of pressure. I knew I can get him in with the right timing, making a lot of pressure until he kind of commits and knows, okay, I just have no other choice than going into that trailer. And I could load really all the horses. Now, these days, I say no. I know I can. I might, if it's a emergency, of course I help. But if it's just to get to a show or whatever, I'm like, you have to find somebody else.
Good for you.
Because I know it's just one example of little steps. I know what trailer loading is.
What is trailer loading?
Trailer loading is like, think about you're a horse. And you're a herd animal. You feel safe in a herd. So you have to go alone, mostly alone, sometimes not, in a dark place. In a narrow thing, up a bridge that is,
not stable.
Being tied up. And then you drive and it's not stable. You might be alone. And it's dark, and maybe it's a nice trailer and not so dark, but it's so much for a horse. And you can break it down into little things, little steps.
So walk us through that. I'm really curious. I'm really excited for you to do that.
If you think about what is a horse trailer, let's say the ramp, you go up. It's like a bridge. or maybe a seesaw. Can you say seesaw?
Yeah, seesaw. Yeah.
So
Teeter-totter.
train that. You don't need a trailer. Train that.
Okay.
If you take these little things apart.
Yep.
Or try to walk your horse through a narrow thing. How does he feel? What is he kind of try to go through it very fast, so you know he's bothered by narrow things. If the seesaw, you make it he's not bothered by, so you know the ramp might not be a problem, but maybe the narrow thing. And then can your horse be tied up, and can he be relaxed at being tied up? It's just one part. So if he doesn't, you know this is one part you need to work on. And at the end, you just put everything together, but not in the beginning. So these days I say, I help you load your horse, but not when you need to load it now.
Yeah.
If we have time to work on it and then build up something beautiful. And by the time we ask the horse to go into the trailer, I know I can ask him, because I know from the little steps he's ready for it.
And it reminds me of the Chelsea Kennedy introduced this idea, and Tick Maynard introduced this idea of the relationship bank to me. And I'd never heard it before, and I'd competed at a pretty high level. And I'd never been introduced to this idea of the relationship bank until in the last couple of years. And I am so grateful, because to me, as you explaining that, you're going through little challenges and you're earning trust because it's coming out okay at the end. So you try the teeter-totter, you explore that,
yes,
and your horse looks to you and something good comes of it. You end on a good note, or you ask something that's possible that you get a yes answer. And I believe that breaking those down into little steps builds up that trust and that relationship bank. And we say, like, you keep depositing money into the relationship bank, so that when you have to go on a trailer and do something new, you're taking a withdrawal from that relationship bank, but you've put a lot more money in, so it's not getting close to zero. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had to think about that.
And these days I feel so bad if I would have to trailer load and help somebody a horse. I know it is too much. I know it's just all at once, and he would spook at probably all the elements.
Yeah.
And it's just, my heart breaks if I'm like, no, I can't.
What would you say to someone who's listening right now who feels like they feel down on themselves? Like you said, some people go, oh, well, I don't want to do the basics. I don't want to break it down. I want my horse to just be able to do this thing. What would you say to them? Why would you say, what would you say? Why is it important that they break down the steps and that they take a couple steps back in order to take one step forward?
Try not to think about it. It's a one step back. It's I know it's hard, and especially in the States, I found out people want to have it fast. And so it's like, I want to have my horse being able to load. But maybe what really helps is to really look in your horse's eye and see how he feels when you ask that. Is he surrendering? Is he really maybe going in his head and thinks, okay, I have no other choice. I have to go in this trail. I have no other choice, but I don't really feel comfortable. Or do you have to make a lot of pressure for the horse to go in order for him to say, okay? So maybe start to really listen to your horse and look into your horse's eye, and then you feel like, okay, this is not the right thing, and then you maybe want to change it yourself because you love your horse. We all love our horses.
Yes.
And it's not just a tool, and then it doesn't feel like a step back. It's like, it shouldn't feel like I take a step back. You should really enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
For example, if you walk in the forest and you are having an invitation for a dinner, and you have to go to that dinner place through the forest to that house for dinner. If you just have in your mind the dinner place, you might not see the little flower on the way. You might not see the birds singing in the forest, you might not see the beautiful trees. So on the journey to get there, there's so much beauty. And when you start to realize that and see that, you actually really enjoy the journey. And that's what's, to me, very, very, very important. Because, for example, to have a beautiful lead change, this is maybe one day, but then you work on it again.
Yes.
It's not there every day. Then you work on it again, and then it's there again, and then you lose it again a little bit. So if you don't enjoy the journey, you actually don't enjoy riding, I would say.
I would agree with you. When we talk about the horses that say, that push back and say, this isn't working, that's my mare lady, and why I'm on this journey, on this big journey across the United States to meet people like you who are doing things differently and who are introducing an approach and a philosophy that's not, maybe it's not always necessarily new, but it's like presenting, because I think that these philosophies have existed before, and I think great many people in the horse world and in the history of horsemanship have been there to advocate for horses. I think we're just in an opportunity or in a moment in time in which that can become more and more the mainstream and more the status quo, because we have the opportunity to use media to do that. And something that I realized very recently working with a gentleman by the name of Dewey Freeman was, when we don't allow our horses to have a voice and say, maybe I'm not ready for this. What I learned in my own journey was, if I wasn't able to give Lady the opportunity to say, this isn't working, or this is too fast, too much too fast, I was actually doing that to myself. And that's why I had a hard time. That's why I would do it to her, was because I wasn't actually even allowing myself to say in my own life, oh, maybe I'm actually not ready for this. And maybe I need to slow down. And I was rushing myself through my own life and not checking in with my own nervous system, my own feelings, my own comfort level. I was doing what we do to horses all the time to myself. So I was going, okay, well, I have no choice, so I'm just going to do it the way that the horses do about going into the trailer. Well, I have no choice, so I'm just going to do it. And I think a lot of us do that in life. I think a lot of us just think we have no choice. We have no ability to put our hands up and go, actually, this is too much, too fast. Can we slow down? And I think that's something that Lady showed me, was that I actually can speak up and say, oh, I actually want to slow down here. I don't want to rush through this process. Or I don't feel I need, what an empowering thought to think, I actually don't have to have this figured out. I can put up my hand and go, I don't understand, or I don't feel I have the basics good enough. So I need to take, 4 steps back. And when I did that, my nervous system became a completely different thing altogether. Like, I actually felt like I could access regulation in the way that I couldn't before. And that doesn't mean you can't do hard things, but it means that, like, you can speak up and allow yourself to have questions. And then when I did that, it changed my mindset about why I was and had in the past pushed horses without checking in with them, because I had basically objectified them because I had objectified myself.
That's it's beautiful. I love these stories. I really do. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful, is when we start listening to our horses. Everything they do is communicating with us. It's not rude. It's not mean. It's not, when they come into your space, it's maybe because they're not relaxed and want to, they see something over there and want to just walk by you. It's not rude. It's just because the horse is not mentally here and things like that. And but what I really love about working with people and their horse is they all have stories like this to tell. It's a life journey where you learn so much about yourself, your weakness, your strength, and you have a chance to become better and better and better. And we all are figuring it out. Nobody's perfect. And we just want to grow, and horses help us grow. That's what I really love. And that's why I really, really love taking people and they stick with me for quite a while. For example, I had people staying with me for 2, 3, 4 years. And we all became friends because we went through so much. Nothing worked. Everything worked beautiful, and then it didn't work. And then they, became resilient by getting back up, try it better, be better, try it harder. And they cried sometimes. They're like, I can't do that, and then she stepped up again. I have so many beautiful stories where they really, really growed as a person for their horse. And now they're a beautiful team. And I love that, to build up something over a period of time.
Yeah, it makes me think that we come into horses as little kids because we're just so drawn to the magic, there's like so much magic within horses and how they move through the world. And then we might become sort of not conditioned, but we might enter into a part of the horse world where it's very focused on the doing part, right? Like all the things that we can do with horses. I can jump horses. I can do dressage with horses. I can race horses. I can do liberty. I can, do gymkhana. Like there's so many things. I can rope cows. I can barrel race. Like there's just so many amazing things that we do with horses. And we get really caught up in all the doing part, right? But it does feel like their greatest gift to us is who we get to become if we allow ourselves to learn the lessons that they have available. That it's not really about the doing. The doing is like a bonus, right?
Yes.
It's like the extra.
Yeah, it's like a little or a big giant how do you say, iceberg?
Yes.
And
yeah.
People only see the what's above, right?
Yeah.
What you can do with your horse. What do you see? Oh, they can do this and this and this. But all this, the foundation I think is the beautiful part, which I learned to enjoy and love, where people don't really see it. But it's that trust and that part you take with you when you go up the mountain and when you do the liberty and people see it.
And those moments like you talk about with some of your clients, like you're crying and you're like, I can't do it. And then you find a space within yourself to do it. And then you surprise yourself, and then you become more patient than you imagined, or you become more curious than you imagined. And then it makes you a better person.
Yes.
Like I think the better I become in my horsemanship, I genuinely believe the better person I am moving through the world. And that is like, to me, the greatest gift that horses give us is actually being better people. And the doing is just like the Trojan horse. It's like how we get, doing is like how they get into us.
Right.
Yeah. But then once they're in there, there's like you said, the iceberg, like underneath the surface is so much more than the part of what we do with them.
I think a huge part is not working with horses, is getting better as a person, grow in our relationships, how we treat other people, how we meet other people, we can still learn a lot in the horse world. Can you really, really, really be at the gate where there is arena, how do you say, the fence?
Yes. Yeah.
And watch people, what they do with their horse and not judge.
Whew. That's a hard one.
I mean, who can? I mean, I would catch myself maybe have these thoughts, and it's so much training and really being a better person trying to help each other, be present with your partner, that he feels seen, heard, and valued. I mean, you can spend time with your partner and you feel you haven't spent any time with your partner because you were not present.
Yes.
How many times am I on my phone?
I'm so guilty
and
of
I'm
that.
like, I spent just a week with my partner every evening, but I didn't feel any closer, and things like that. We can learn so much to grow as a person in everyday life that benefits our horses as well, and the horses help us to grow as well. So it's really interesting. I love the journey. And just one short little tiny example of a friend, I say friend because they all became friends.
Yes.
Was working with me for years, and she was or is such a beautiful, soft, kind lady, but she couldn't tell the horse what she wants. Sometimes you have to be clear.
Yes.
And she couldn't. And then if you're not clear, what happens? You start to apply sudden pressure all the time. For example, the horse, when you walk, pushes forward a little bit. And you don't want to be clear. Sometimes there's an underlying need why a horse pushes forward. There's separation anxiety involved as well. But let's say there's no separation anxiety. It's just the horse kind of not knowing where his space is. So by leading the horse, the horse was always pushing forward, and by her not wanting to be clear, she made sudden pressure all the time, trying to say, stay back, stay back. So she was having that tension inside her all the time, so the horse doesn't feel safe anymore. And you apply pressure the whole time, which leads to a horse that can even shut down.
Yeah.
By having sudden pressure. So she really had to learn to also be clear. And then she really had a hard time. But after maybe a year, she, it's important to know why you do things.
Absolutely.
In order to be able to do it. And that's a big thing too, that I love to teach people why they do things. That they can become their trainer for their own horse and actually understands. Sorry, I have so much in my head to talk about.
That's great.
Anyway, she was in the capital city of Switzerland at night. It was dark at a bus station, and this strange, weird guy came up to her, and she knew he didn't have a good intention. So she told him, "You go sit back on that bank." And he didn't. So she, got a little bit more stronger and said, "You're going to sit back on that bank."
Yeah.
And he didn't. And then she started screaming at him. "And you now go sit back on that bank." And he was so perplexed that he went to sit on that bank and left.
Really?
And she told me that later. She said, if I wouldn't have worked with horses, I wouldn't have ever been able to do that. I would have, kind of froze.
Yes.
And there's just one tiny little
example
of.
That's a great story, because you and I are both, I'm listening to that story and I'm imagining exactly the building of the energy.
Yes.
Her energetic field, right? And then bigger energy. And we have to do that with our horses, Some horses they need that. And so, but you build that fluency, I think, in energy.
But you can only do it when a horse understands why
Mm-hmm.
you do it. If it wouldn't have helped probably if this guy wouldn't have known what she would have meant.
Yes. Yeah. That's the clarity of the message is as important as as the level or the frequency of the energy that you give off.
You're not allowed to use more energy if you don't know that the horse knows what to do.
Yeah. So, exactly.
Anyway.
This has been such an amazing podcast. I've learned just so much listening to you. It's like, you tell great stories.
Thank you.
I think it's a really powerful part of being a great horseman and a horsewoman, is to be able to, so much of what we do with horses is unseen. It's intangible. It's, so storytelling, I think, is one of the great ways to explain all the things we cannot see, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and I think we can just be trying to show how it can be and feel, because I think sometimes it's very hard for people to know and imagine what it can actually feel like and what it can look like, because they have never seen it, never experienced it, don't have anybody in their stable that actually works like that. So it's really, really hard. And that's what's nice about social media these days. It's not everything is nice, but this is kind of nice that you can really share your thoughts and how it could actually maybe look and feel like when you work with horses. So people have a vision, you need a dream, you need somebody or something you could hold on to and say, hi, I want that. I would love that feeling, that it can actually feel like I see it in that movie or in that clip with the horse. So you need a vision where you want to go, and it all starts with a dream.
Actually, I think that's such a beautiful piece to end on is you need to, and I learned this a lot in Mark's work. He explained a lot about how a lot of the people that he's worked with talk a lot about what they don't want. And they sometimes have a harder time explaining what they want with their horses. He goes, yeah, but what do you want? What's your big goal? What's your big dream? Well, I just don't want my horse to do this, this, and this, and I don't want my horse. He goes, yeah, okay. What do you want? And I think that that's a hugely empowering and super important takeaway of today's podcast is not only is it important to have a dream, to see something, guys, I do vision boards, make a vision board on Pinterest or in person. Do a vision board of what you really want for your relationship with your horse or relationships in all of your life. Because actually that's like ground zero. Because then when you talk about the little steps, you can start forming the little steps to this big dream, but you have to have the big dream first. You have to have the inspiration. You have to see someone or see a horse and rider combination and go, I want that. And if you do that, then you can actually find people like you, so many of our masterclass instructors on NF Plus. There's so many people out there who are very willing and actually very passionate about helping people break down in the little steps on how to get to their greatest dream.
So really, really, for everyone out there, dream big. You are allowed to dream big because nothing is impossible. It all starts with a dream. And that's so funny that one of my students or friend, I say friend, I don't like the word student. They're all friends. Yeah. She tells me now, do you remember you told me dream and dream big, and it all starts with a dream. Yeah. And she had this vision, this dream with her young horse. She did never, ever started a young horse. She bought a young horse and actually trained her young horse with my help, but she trained it herself. I always gave her homework, and it was a journey, crying and stepping back up. She had this dream. I want to ride with my horse, liberty, free out in nature. Now, what is she doing 2-3 years later? She's riding liberty with her horse out in nature, sharing these beautiful videos with me, telling me all the time, do you remember? And this fulfills my heart. So dream big, because it depends on your dream. It's a different journey, right? If you want to if you want to become a horse trainer, or if you want to become flying airplanes, it's a different it's a different path you take if you want to be, and dreams are important. And one other thing that happen if you shift the energy towards the positive in life, and that's also, you can learn that while going through life with horses, without horses. When you only see what you were talking about, the negative things, I don't want my horse to not stand still. Yeah. You see all the time the things your horse does wrong, but you don't see the 2 seconds your horse is actually standing still. And that is so important, that you actually start to see what your horse does right and start to tell your horse, that's what I want, and not just the things you don't want. And then it becomes more beautiful too if you shift your thinking of the positive into the positive. And it also helps with your surrounding. You surround yourself more with positive people.
Yeah.
And your surrounding becomes more positive because you start to think different and start to be more positive.
Absolutely. I actually was thinking too, as you were explaining that goal, that's one of my goals with my mare, is to ride at liberty out in nature. So I'm really excited for you to help me on that journey. I feel like that's one of the things, that's one of my great goals, but I think that it will take time. And
I do anything for anybody if they say I have a dream, and it doesn't matter what it takes. I want to fulfill this dream, and I don't care how long it takes. Then I'm willing to do anything. This is what I love. These are the people I love to coach.
Yeah, I actually wonder whether when we have a dream and we say, I have a dream, I have this really big goal, but I need to do it in a certain period of time. I wonder whether that's actually then really a big dream. Because if you really want something like more than ever, then everything else to me feels like it shouldn't matter. Like the length of time and what it takes or whatever. I feel like when we attach a timeline to it, to me, then it's like, is that really your big dream? Or is the dream actually getting that done at a certain period of time, which is different?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it takes away from the purity of
Mm-hmm.
the dream or the goal. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you can maybe help also that the big dream is not the big dream, it's the journey itself.
Yes.
Start to shift their, kind of help them out that it's taking as long as it takes. It depends on you, it depends on the horse. And you can maybe help them turn around and think a little bit different about it.
Well, I hope everyone goes and makes a vision board after this. They
Yes.
listen to this podcast. I'm going to actually want to go and update my one because I think you totally inspired me, that the importance of really focusing on the big dreams and the big goals that we have for the horses, and then working backwards from that, and then also embracing that the walk, like it's like the climb to Everest.
Yes.
You know, like when you look at Everest, you think that is going to be so hard. But it's a step. You talk to any climber who's ever climbed Everest. It's actually a breakdown of very small steps. That's the only way that you'll ever be able to climb the largest mountain in the world, is if you break it down into little steps. And actually, the majority of the experience is the journey to get to the peak. And then once you're at the peak, you can only stay up there because you're at 35,000 feet above sea level. Like you can only stay up there for a certain period of time, and then you have to get down. Mm-hmm. So if you do not embrace the power and the impact of the journey and all the challenge and the technicality that goes into the like earning that climb up Everest, is actually the process of getting up there.
And I think maybe one other little tip about exactly what you were saying, if you want to try to follow your dream. You have this dream, you want to follow your dream. I had this dream and this wish, and I needed a timeout from social media and everything. I knew I needed to be more grounded again for my horses as well, for myself. And I had this dream, I want to go to Alaska, let me drop off from my airplane and live from nature, what nature gives me. And also kind of not study, but see the grizzly bears.
Yes.
Study the grizzly bears.
Yeah.
So stay out there in the nature for a period of time. And I had this dream, and a lot of people were thinking you're crazy, right? So I started to, because this dream was so young still at that time, so it was just a vision, to only talk to people about it that I knew are going to support me. And knew they had the knowledge to help me grow, to actually make this vision come true. And I started to train as well. You know, I went out a lot in the wilderness and talked to people who have done and actually watched the grizzly bears close, how you have to behave around them in their country. And things like that. And then the vision becomes actually a reality kind of. And then I was so self-confident with every knowledge I gained that it is possible to do, and I know I can do it. Then I started to share this dream with people that are criticizing, because I got stronger, and I knew I can stand this criticizing by knowing I know what I'm doing. And when it was just a little vision, I still wasn't strong about it. All these other people who were thinking, you can't do it, this is too hard, this, would have maybe made me not do it.
So it feels like the message is to be careful who you surround yourself around and who you share your big dreams with.
Yeah, surround yourself with people that believe in you and help you with this vision. And once you really are sure with your journey, then you maybe can, get criticized. People can take these people take actually. That criticism, you can take that and still not go away from your vision.
That's such a good place to end this. But before we end, I always finish the podcast with our rapid fire questions. The first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
If you could read one book to the horse world, what would it be?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know yet.
It can be any book. Could be, and it doesn't have to be a horse book.
I would read a book from Jay Shetty. I think he's a very...
Jay Shetty? Okay.
Jay Shetty, yeah.
Cool.
He's a very inspiring person to me, that you can take a lot of what he says into your relationship with horses as well, even though he has nothing to do with horses.
Yeah, cool. Who is the most iconic horse in history?
All of them.
That's a great answer. And no one said that yet. No.
All horses have the same heart, and, they're all great.
That's an amazing answer. Most undervalued skill as a rider. Something that's important, but maybe doesn't get the same amount of attention that
Not
it should.
Wanting to learn and grow and think everything, because we actually know nothing. So we never stop learning. Really always try to grow for you and your horse.
That's a really cool. So willingness to learn.
And
openness and yeah, I think you represent that really well, because ever since I met you, you were ever since we first talked, you were I'm just learning. I'm just wanting to get better. I'm just learning. And I think that's probably one of those strongest, most powerful statements you've said to me that really made an impression.
Yeah. And for example, I was recently I went to Portugal, and I've been training horses and people for years and years and years. And they, I've tied up a horse there, and they said, no, this is not how we tie up horses. So instead of going, hey, I've been doing it for 20 years.
This is how I do it. Yeah.
Why do you tell me that?
Yeah,
It's oh, okay. That's interesting. Show me how you do it and why you do it.
Yeah.
You can always learn something, even though you maybe think you're a good person at tying up horses. It's they do it different, because why? And then you can learn something. You can always learn something.
So cool. Who is the greatest horseman or horsewoman in history, in your opinion?
Whoever teaches something, everyone has something good.
Do you think?
I don't think there's just one greatest. I think most everyone has something good, if it's for the horse and if it's meant for the horse and for the people in a good way.
And last question, mares, stallions, or geldings? Which one, if you were to pick?
All of them. I take whatever comes. I work with the horse I have in front of me. If it's a mare, if it's a stallion, if it's a gelding, I really don't care.
Miriam, it's been amazing to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
for having me. I love the States.